Welcome to Untamed Blossoms, the podcast where we celebrate the untamed journey of womanhood. Here, we tell the stories of incredible women who have embraced their authenticity, inspiring others to do the same.
From entrepreneurs to artists, activists to adventurers, we share triumphs, challenges, and the beauty of self-discovery. These are the stories of women blazing their own trails, breaking free, and blooming unapologetically.
Join us to connect, be inspired, and celebrate the power of women's stories. Together, let's rewrite the rules and embrace our wildness.
Welcome to Untamed Blossoms. I'm your host, Amanda Riley.
And I'm Christy Riley. Welcome to the show.
I saw this meme. Well, it was sent to me yesterday, and it's like, here's 9 aliens. Which alien do you think you are? And like one was like an alien with like a third eye. One was like a lizard alien. And I was like, yeah, I would love to think that I'm alien 1 or 2. Those 2.
Right.
But I'm really probably about a 5 or a 7. And it was like these giant like Jabba the Hutt like aliens with like hoods on that look like really ridiculous. I'm like, that's probably what I really am.
You do believe that you're alien.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who believe that they're Palladian, like that's a new, right? So
yeah.
There's all of these different things, and we haven't really talked about Amanda's and I's freak side. We believe a lot of crazy shit.
Yeah.
So Amanda does believe she's part alien.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just looking around here like
mushrooms, like she's really into mushrooms. She's really into jellyfish, which we believe are aliens.
The whole ocean.
I can't wait till AI can communicate with animals. That's what I came away from vacation deciding, that AI is going to decipher how to speak to animals, and we're going to be able to talk to them at some point. And how cool is that going to be?
It is cool. I will say I tried to sell Noah on getting animal psychic that Dee Dee got for her cat.
Yeah.
He was not a believer, but then also he did bring up a good point. He was like, what if Miley's like, I hate Pino. So I have 2 cats, Miley and Pino. Miley does for sure hate him, but he was like, wouldn't you feel horrible to know like how much she hates him? And I was like, yeah, we're not doing this.
Abort.
Really changed my mind. I can't know this information. I will be devastated because I don't know what I would do.
So our friend did this, and it was actually quite accurate. And the lady knew a bunch of stuff that she shouldn't have known that came from this cat. And it's really cool. And so that's what we're referring to as a lady psychic who can communicate with the
We should get her on the show.
We should have her on the show for sure. That would be exciting. That would be an exciting topic.
Thought about this soon.
I know. Why didn't we think about that immediately?
Yeah, let's get her info.
For sure.
Yeah,
okay. We'll definitely do that.
Yeah. Hard right here. Are a lot of your flowers blooming? I feel like so many of my spring flowers are coming up right now.
Dude,
it's crazy.
The farm, I'm excited, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't done anything with the outside vegetation of the farm, except we're starting to clean some places up and make a place for a garden. Because I purposely wanted to see, by the time we moved in, it was fall and everything was dying. So I couldn't really tell what was what and what. So it's kind of cool to see
what's here
and what's been planted and what has historically been. And so there's a ton of Easter lilies and hyacinths and all that stuff that's coming up, which has been really cool. So we were outside with the grandbabies yesterday, walking around, smelling flowers already.
Just so beautiful. I love spring flowers.
Yeah.
They're just so beautiful.
And for Cynthia bushes are the yellow ones that that are the first ones to flower.
Yeah.
So, part of my plan is to create hopefully native plants to Ohio. A lot of the things that we plant here for landscaping is non-native plants to Ohio. So really trying as much as I can to lean into native plantings. And for Cynthia is one of them.
Yeah.
So without them being invasive. So that it might end up being what we have as a hedge wherever we need them.
Yeah.
But that and lilac bushes. And
yeah.
So that'll be another kind of late spring flowering bush. And
lilacs are one of my favorite spring flowers because when we were growing up, we had a whole sunroom that was like lined with windows. I'm 100% positive, very energy insufficient because we had to tape them with plastic every winter.
Of course, yes.
But in the summer, we didn't have central air. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we had screens in all the windows. And we had this huge lilac bush in our backyard. And we would open the windows and just the whole house was just like,
Yeah. And the old lilac bushes have such a different fragrance
totally.
than the new ones.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's happened genetically, but the very old ones, and we have an old one on the farm up here, so I can't wait for it to bloom to see what it smells like. But trying to recreate that, like, is there somebody that has sort of the old gene line that you can have? And it's one of the things that my mom talked about all the time is that we grew up with those my grandmother had one outside of her house too. And that smell just sort of gets ingrained into your memories of springtime and Easter. And it's all around that same time when you're outside from the winter. And hers always smelled so good.
Yeah.
And now you get them and they're fragrant, but not the same. It's not the same. Yeah.
I planted a ton of lavender by my front door.
Mm-hmm.
And I had cut it down last winter and like I dried a bunch of lavender sprigs to do weird shit with, like witchy shit. And last year I just didn't. I don't know what happened, but I didn't. And it's been looking like a dead plant this whole winter. But now like I can see like some of it coming back to life and coming out. So I need to like prune it.
Right.
But I noticed today for the first time when I walked out my front door, I smelled the lavender. I was like, oh, this is so wonderful.
Yeah. It's planted up around the back door too, lavender, but I haven't whatever variation this is, it's not coming around. So we'll see what happens. But
all I know is if we get a cold few days, I'll lose my fucking mind. I want you to know that. I'll lose it because I'm already in spring.
Continue to get warm.
I'm already in spring. I can't go backwards.
Yeah, no, we can't have an April snow. We typically do in Ohio.
Oh, not this year.
But it'll
take me out.
It'll crush my soul. Yeah, it was too cold this winter. Yeah, and I didn't get into nearly enough sunshine this winter. So
I won't stand for it.
I'm with you. We're gonna energetically review it.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and talking about energy, our next guest.
Yeah. She has great energy. We've known Stephanie personally for a while. Stan introduced me to her. He was his chiropractor at a previous gym that he was going to. And we all know kind of the same people in different areas of the world. But she's a chiropractor. She's everything health and wellness. She does weightlifting. She works with athletes. Like, really cool lady. Been a single mom for quite a while. So I can't wait to hear what she wants to talk about today. It could be a wealth of things.
My favorite type of guest is a roulette type of guest.
Yeah. Who's also a power lifter, which is right in your wheelhouse.
A lot of questions.
Yeah. She's a badass. She's my age. She's 53. She looks amazing. Has been doing all the biohacking things. So I'm really excited to talk to her about all that.
Totally.
Stephanie, hi. How are you?
Well, great to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. Stephanie, I met Stephanie through my husband, Stan, who you were doing chiropractic work at the gym that he was going to.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the way I understand your business model is that you work with a lot of athletes. You work with a lot of everybody, but you're very athletically kind of people that are on their wellness journey and
being an ex-college athlete myself, and then working with a lot of pro hockey players, NBA guys, NFL guys. I understand their training, how important their recovery treatments are, maybe more important than their training, especially with pro athletes. If you're not healthy, you don't sign the next contract.
Right.
So that's where it's at.
Yeah. I would imagine hockey stuff is.
Yeah, that's been
wild.
Some of their list of injuries that happen to them are potentially catastrophic.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the most risky athletes that I've worked with.
The only thing I know about hockey and athletes are the hockey smut that I read on occasion.
Well, now
that's a whole different.
But I hear the stories.
There might be some truth behind this love stories. She's like, I can't say.
There has to be a whole genre of that for a reason. When I first started reading some smut on the side for fun, I was like, God, there's so many hockey ones. Why?
Yes.
And I'm like, oh,
Now we
I
know.
get it. So.
So take us back a little bit. You were born and raised in Ohio?
Yes, I grew up in St. Mary's, Ohio, very rural Northwest Ohio community, pretty much farming community.
Yeah.
A town of probably 8,000 or 9,000 people. And loved it, had grandparents that lived the next towns over, Minster and New Bremen, and, grew up a lot of like farm to table. My dad was one of 11 children. My
Wow.
mom was an only child, so that was interesting dynamic.
Right.
But, learning about that and how much I appreciate that as far as being sent out to dig up the potatoes that were on the dinner table, cut the broccoli, we canned everything, made, it just amazing.
Your connection to the land and the food that you were consuming was strong from a young age. So.
Yeah, yes, very much so. And it was, made our family closer because we kind of worked as a family with all of that. But, now just how important it is with crop rotation and the soil. And, I didn't grow up consuming ultra processed foods and GMO. I mean,
Right.
it was
Right.
whole foods
Yeah.
that we were eating all the time.
Yeah.
So, and there was a lot of things when you grow up in a small town that just naturally hold you accountable. It just happens.
When community is small and strong like that.
Yeah. You can't be a bad person. I mean,
Right.
you just get called out.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you can see in a small community how your actions impact others. I think that's also, is like if you do something bad to Sally, then you can see that Sally, like whatever that is, right? Like
the ripple
you can
effect
kind of,
of that,
you see it. It's not so
absolutely.
innocuous and isn't a big place where you can kind of.
And you just want to do good. You want to help the collective.
Yeah.
Yes.
And farm, I've recognized that even moving out here, and we're not that far out, but like I've never had anybody do anything or check on me. And out here they were like, hey, and they brought me food like when you first moved in. And
yes.
right.
And I think people mean it. It's a
Yeah.
very genuine,
Totally.
hey, if you need anything, call me.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not just to say it, right?
Yeah.
It's like they actually mean.
Yeah. And they met my dog before they met me because
Yeah.
my dog had been visiting the neighbors. Unbeknownst to us, we did not know that Leroy was making his way around to all the neighbors. And they're like, oh my gosh, he came in the house. I was like, oh, geez, I'm so sorry. I'm like, he's living his best life out here.
Right.
Like, we came from a very tiny subdivision, and so he had to be on a leash constantly. And now we let him run.
Newfound freedom.
Oh,
Right?
I mean, just smiling on his face, just running. Like the first few months here was magical for him. He was like,
fantastic.
this is my new life,
Yeah.
So, and they were very understanding and loving and kind about my dog. Where the neighbors in subdivisions, not so much with your dog, although our neighbors were very understanding of Leroy and they loved him, but not
to the
yeah. Mostly they're like, somebody's dog has escaped. Can you please confine him? Thank you.
So when you were growing up, did you play a lot of sports?
Oh, definitely. So, played volleyball, basketball, softball, ran cross country.
Okay.
So that's kind of a story too. So, my mom's rule was if we weren't playing a sport, we had to get a job, and she meant it.
Oh,
and so jobs around there were kind of hardcore. It was a lot of like
physical
job.
labor.
Yes, very manual labor. Just I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to play every sport
I'm
I
going to
can.
play volleyball, basketball, softball, and then I'm going to play AAU in the summer because I'm not, and I had those summers where I worked in, a dairy factory and I drove a forklift and I stacked pallets. That was the summer, like my freshman year after my freshman year of college.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I really don't want to do this. It's hard. So,
Yeah.
But that taught me, all those things taught me a lot of good character traits.
Yeah.
Work ethic, again, accountability.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite sport? Like which of those did you really lean into?
Basketball for sure.
Yeah.
So then I went on undergrad. I did University of Rio Grande, and we were NAI Division I, so I still got a full ride between academics and athletics.
Nice.
had a great career there, scored 1,000 points in 3 years.
Nice.
First team all district out of 21 teams and conference.
A lot of success.
Yeah, we had a really, really, it was a good experience there.
Yeah.
So, but that was a small college, so it was even smaller than my hometown, which was another level of like microcosm, right?
Yeah.
So, but I knew how to handle that having grown up in a small
Yeah.
Right.
You always can tell in I went to a small college, Heidelberg. In Pippin.
yeah, that's
And
not far from
you could always tell the people like me who grew up in Marion, Ohio, small versus people that came in from like Florida. We had a really great soccer team. They would come in from England and they would be like, where the hell am I?
What do I do here? Right.
Like there's one road. The campus is one road. What's happening? But it's funny because you could just immediately see who was used to that kind of environment and who was like, what the hell?
Right.
Yeah.
What have I got myself into?
I mean, I think it served me well, and it was a great time in my life to, boost your confidence with not only pay for my college, which was huge. Just, my parents, my stepfather worked in a Goodyear factory. My mom worked in a factory. I mean, they basically told my sister and I and my brother, we kind of don't have the money to pay for college. So, you're going to have to figure that out. And so I had a great coach my freshman year in high school that said, hey, Steph, I think this is something, you can do something with this. And I was like, let's go with that, and just loved everything about it. So.
That's awesome.
And then I went on to chiropractic college in Atlanta. So it's down there 5 years, I think, 21 to 26 or so, 25 when I graduated. That was big city life. So that was like, wow, who are Jewish people? Who are Black people? Who are, Italians? I mean, so.
Yeah. Culture shock.
It was great. I mean, I love like, learning about new people, their cultures, their stories. So I just took it all in.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Yeah. And what year was that around?
I was down there 92 to 97.
Okay.
So the Olympics were there like my last year. That was part of my reason that I decided to go there. There was so much going on. Largest chiropractic college. It was really happening down there. And it was a great decision.
Had a great time.
Yeah, I did. So, but it was, lock your doors had a whole new meaning because we didn't do that in St. Mary's, Ohio. And I was like, okay, I better lock my car doors, my apartment,
Right.
So,
I'm in the big city now. I got to protect myself. Yeah.
Opportunistic things.
Yeah.
And you immediately knew you wanted to go into chiropractic.
Yeah. So I, within that story, I was 5 and in a pretty crazy car accident, time in the 70s where, you're not wearing seatbelts and car seats and all of that. So that was part of it because I had 12 fractures. So pelvic fracture, femur fracture, both legs, kind of thing. Had to learn how to walk again, crawl, all of it. And then probably the first time I went to the chiropractor was maybe 7, just being a tomboy. And I had a really stiff neck and went to our local chiropractor, Dr. Spielis. And it was like this light bulb went on. I was like, wow, I feel so much better. And then my mom was very into, I had a couple of sinus infections and, I was on penicillin a couple of times. She just realized, she's like, we're not doing that anymore. We're going to go get an adjustment to help the body holistically, innately heal itself. And so I probably figured it out at maybe, 13, 14. I was like, I want to be a chiropractor. Wow. And I just was on that path.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have memory of the car accident and your time in the hospital after that?
That's a whole very interesting. I do, but I'd have to say that some of those memories were kind of brought back to me through hypnotherapy because I knew it was such a traumatic event that happened. There's some other, things that were kind of around that and why we were where we were and why it even happened. That was maybe the deeper dive. Some things between my parents and all of that. But I've always found it fascinating in life and when a trauma, a tragedy propels you into like almost your true purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's why I think why chiropractic is, I'm so passionate about it. I've lived it. I have a story with it. And it's been great.
I love that you're not afraid of any therapy at all.
Yeah.
I love this about you, Stephanie. And I always have, you're like, hypnotherapy that I came to remember about my accident, right? And so the fact that you're willing, and the reason I know that about you is that we go to originally the same person. I reached out to you about biofeedback,
Right.
and you had of course, you had a biofeedback
Yeah.
person, and Janine, who we've had on the podcast, who's lovely. But the fact that you're all the things, she's like, oh yeah, Stephanie does all of my treatments, like all of them. Like I'm like, does she do the quantum better? She's like, oh yeah, she's tried them all.
Yeah.
That you're not, you're open to all of the things, and it doesn't surprise me that you're like
vibrational beings. I mean,
yes,
30 to 40 trillion cells in the body that I kind of talk about it with my patients that constantly churning and burning right through our nutrition. And, you've got to keep your mind right. You've got to keep your cells right. And, so it's not just chiropractic that I feel that's just one, spoke in the wheel, right? And you've got to do a lot of things. I think it's really important to have a great functional medicine doctor who's really digging deep into your biomarkers with vitamin and mineral panels, figuring out where you're deficient, eating a whole food diet, hydrating. I mean, it almost can sound like you're like an obsessive compulsive person, but I think in today's time and world with how stressful it is and how busy it is and technology, all the things buzzing around us all the time, like in my opinion, I think hitting that reset button as much as I can to help my body stay in tune and stay healthy is a good idea. So,
agreed.
Yeah.
It's a mind shift for people, right? Like instead of going to the doctor and getting a pill,
yes,
you're being proactive, so you don't need to go to the doctor and get a pill for whatever disease has shown up, right?
100%. And I think because I've lived that lifestyle since I was a young kid,
right,
that now I know the science behind it.
Yeah.
But I truly lived it before I even understood the science.
Yeah.
And even us chiropractors, we weren't really peer reviewed until my generation of chiros, which is I've been practicing 28 years. It's where it's at as far as like being able to talk to other medical doctors and they respect you,
right?
Whether it be a neurosurgeon.
Oh yeah, you were quacks forever. Like, that's
totally
you're quacks. You don't know what you're doing. Oh, you're gonna go have some adjustments done, and it's gonna fix you. Whatever.
Right. And
like legitimately, they
100%.
Medical doctors.
I even remember still like when I was in high school, so 2000, 2004, people still had that mindset of like,
and I think it's still somewhat out there. I think that's what I love about when I say practice, I'm educating my patients all the time, and I just so enjoy when the light bulb goes off, right? Where it's kind of like, wow, are you serious? Like you feed the body right, do all the maintenance recovery things, and how it will heal itself. I mean, it's incredibly innately intelligent.
Yes.
And
it's been our theme today.
Yeah. The older I get, the more that I just respect that or, appreciate it. Right. I personally haven't taken antibiotics in over 30 years.
Wow.
I mean, maybe one time.
Yeah.
So I'm just never sick.
It's just unnecessary.
I've never,
Yeah.
And my kids live that lifestyle too.
Right.
So, sit in our infrared sauna, lay in our PEMF mat.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, can you go into a little bit of some of the treatments that you've done that you really find beneficial?
Yeah. So, daily, of course, I see my colleague for chiropractic manipulation every 2 weeks. I get massage every 2 weeks. Daily infrared sauna, full sunlight and full spectrum sauna with red light panels in there. I have my PEMF mat, stands for pulsed electromagnetic field. I lay on that every night after my sauna session. I think everything that I do focuses on driving the good function and supporting the mitochondria and the cells. Very dense in the brain, the heart. We don't have healthy mitochondria. That's
you don't
when
have
our
health
cells
at all.
start to denature. That's when disease processes really set in. So that includes my nutrition, my supplements that I take every day, omega-3s, magnesium, B complex, probiotic. I do monthly NAD drips to support mitochondria, NMN, resveratrol supplementation. There's a lot of things. Acupuncture, I'll do that every couple of months. Dry needling, I go to a PT for that. Exercise, walking, breathing, meditation, grounding outside, morning sunlight, breath work. I mean, you name it.
We've done it.
I have my AO scanner frequency device.
Yeah.
So anything to support all of it. So,
I know that she was my kind when I walked in and there was a Tesla coil sitting.
yeah.
I was like, I love you already.
With correcting the function of the cell instead of giving the body things to almost inhibit that.
Right.
You know, even taking your anti-inflammatories and your NSAIDs and all of that is really shutting down the cascade of positive inflammation for the body.
People don't understand
Yeah, we
when
don't
I tell
see
them
that.
when I tell them that I cured my vertigo by stop taking NSAIDs.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, they're like, "That's not a thing." And I'm like, "I'm telling you,
100%.
I 100% believe that NSAIDs were causing my vertigo. And I lived on NSAIDs because I was a nurse
lot
for
of people
27
do.
years. Everybody's like,
Can you
ibuprofen.
explain what?
An NSAID is ibuprofen.
Okay.
Okay. So for me, it was an ibuprofen. There's other in that category, but for me, it was ibuprofen.
Yeah.
Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory
Mhm.
drug. That's what it stands for. I would take ibuprofen because Tylenol didn't work for me for cramps. And in high school, I started. And so it was nothing for me to take 800 at a time through my entire time I was on my
it's
period.
sold at the CVS, Walgreens. I mean, it's right there.
Right?
Yeah.
How
Over
many
the
times
counter.
as an athlete where they were like, go on NSAIDs, go on NSAIDs, go on NSAIDs, right?
Yes.
If you've got an inflamed joint, if you've got a sprained ankle, like they want you to take these anti-inflammatory drugs.
Or cortisone. Or,
And as a nurse, I will tell you that I was told, literally verbatim in nursing school, that you can't overdose on NSAIDs. It's innocuous, right? Meaning Tylenol, you can really truly overdose. Like you can truly kill yourself by taking too much Tylenol.
Oh, and the damage to your intestines,
But
your
they don't-
kidneys, your liver. I mean,
Yeah.
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 So 800 at a clip. And then I'm working in an environment where we're
Yeah.
giving NSAIDs to every ortho patient that walks in, every kid that has a fever. Like we are giving it like candy. And then to find out that it's killing your gut biome
Mhm.
with every dose and that it
Mhm.
can accumulate toxins in your body, nobody's talking about it.
You're not getting to the root cause of the
No.
problem, and you're not healing optimally.
Right.
When you choose
Nobody
to.
talked to me about why are you having such horrible periods? What nutrition are you getting? Now, I was very
Yeah.
poor growing up. I wasn't on a farm. We were welfare people. We were getting the worst of the processed foods, right? So really, my nutrition was probably causing my periods to be the way they
Sure.
were.
They were not trained to look
No.
at the body. It's so very like siloed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you go for an orthopedic problem within a big orthopedic practice, you've got the knee guy, you've got the hip guy, you've got the spine guy. I mean,
Yep.
you know, and nobody is really like putting it all together. I think
No.
it's starting to get better,
Right.
because people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And insurance premiums are ridiculous, deductibles are ridiculous. And so
We are the U.S. is the country that spends the most money on medicine and
Yeah.
are the sickest in the world.
it's awful.
Yeah.
So the number of biologics, autoimmune disorders that are, and it's like, look at the gut microbiome.
Right.
Heal within.
Yeah.
You still need it? Fine.
Right.
But try everything else first.
Right.
So
Yeah. It wasn't until Eric, actually, we had the same doctor for a while,
Yeah.
that I realized that the connection between nutrition and what I'm putting in my body and what is happening with it, and that all of those things were connected. And it was even past him that when you started, it's always when something negative happens, right? It's always when you're suffering with something really
It wakes you
terrible that
up.
happens that you're like,
it's a fire
wait,
alarm,
whoa.
you know?
And you're not getting the answers. Nobody can answer the question for you.
Yeah.
And then you have to find it for yourself. And that was my journey. It's probably a lot of people's journey, right? Is that you find these things out because you have to.
Yeah.
And then you find the truth out for you, and then you realize there's truth out there for probably everyone, but it's not really mainstreamed. And so people look at you like, of course you cured your vertigo with stop taking. I'm like, literally, it was an ongoing thing that I was seeing chiropractors for, because it was an ongoing recurring thing that I was suffering with. And it can be debilitating to where it takes away your life. And I would have days and weeks that I would lose to this thing. And I'm like, I'm so young. Why is this happening to me?
It's not always a structural problem.
Yeah.
It can be hormonal. It can be,
and I'm like, they're like, go to a chiropractor. A chiropractor can treat this. I can help you with it. And I was having my neck adjusted, my ears adjusted. And some of that would work a little bit, but it never worked long term.
Yeah. I've had patients that, that was the reason.
Right.
Maybe a car accident, like major
Right.
traumatic
think to your-
structural damage.
And I think to your point, it's not just one thing. That's what you're trying to
Yes.
say, right? Like
Right.
it's not sure all these things might help in these silos, but really looking totally and like seeing like what's
Yeah.
going on. Like I remember going to a chiropractor and having horrible sinus headaches, and he's like, "Have you ever considered that maybe it's some adjustments that need to be done?" And I
Mhm.
remember getting like a massage after an adjustment, and I could feel in my head
Yes.
that relief. So
And I think why doing all the things is because we also don't want our treatment modalities, like chiropractic and massage, to be the Band-Aid
Right.
for what's going on.
Right.
Okay? So it's like take the deeper dive into, vitamin, mineral deficiencies, food sources, balance yourself there,
Yeah.
hormone imbalances, right?
Right.
And I see that with
Heavy
patients.
metals.
Yes, detox, all those things. And I see that amongst my patients, the more that the deeper dive that they take with that and supporting their cellular wellness, maybe the less they need to come see me. That's great.
yeah.
There's
Right.
somebody else right behind you that I really enjoy educating, helping. There's always somebody falling, always somebody getting in a car accident, hurting themselves playing a sport, whatever that is. I stay busy enough. But I love it when the light gets turned on and they're like, wow, I cannot believe how much better I feel. And again, I think finding the right doctor, Dr. Serrano changed my life when I was so in search of a physician like him.
Right.
And when I found him, I'm like, I've got to foster this. I mean, I shadow him. He sends me studies, it's just, he's amazing.
Yeah. He's a wealth of knowledge, that's for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think that that's really important. I think we're really lucky in Columbus. We have a lot of really good people here.
Mhm.
And I feel like Janine, I think a little bit law of attraction, like those
Right.
people, we find each other.
Right.
It's kind of like, because where a lot of my practices have been, I used to have a big practice in the village, see 60 patients a day. Now a busy day is probably 15 because I really enjoy spending the time and connecting with my patients.
Yeah.
I don't make as much money, but I'm happier. I'm way less stressed. And
Yeah.
it's been a real positive.
Yeah.
What are some of the main things that you see from aside from injury that people are coming in for? Has there been a trend or anything that you've been noticing?
I think it's, people want to stay feeling good and whatever they're up to in their lives, right? So, if you're trying to show up, like I've got one patient, he runs ultra marathons. I'm talking 240-mile races. And so that's what he's up to, right? So I'm there to support him in whatever that means. So, if that's once a week, if that's every 2 weeks, right? I mean, a 95-year-old, where she might only call me, if it's really bad. That's fine. I mean, I think it's a good idea to do supportive maintenance treatments because the body is constantly under stress, right? So, but yeah, besides athletes, I'd have to say, I've seen infants for colic and ear infections. In school, we were taught that our structure dictates our function, whether that at the cellular level, vitamins, minerals, nutrition, the true structure of the spine. If a curve has been decreased, because of looking down on our phones all the time, that can be a reason in young kids to have, headaches or neck pain more than what they should, right? So, yeah, I mean, I see a very diverse practice with all of that, whether it's a sprained ankle to, just, hey, I just want to stay feeling good. I don't have any pain. That's what I love, when people finally get it that, hey, this is a good thing to kind of like you take your car in for a tire rotation and oil change. Why would you not do that for your biomechanical body? Right. I mean,
Right.
it kind of makes a lot of sense.
Right. Right.
So
To get the adjustment. And you don't realize, I think that too, I think over the years, I realized that when you do have something that's not working optimally, right? Whether that's you're looking down at you don't notice your compensatory, like your body is compensating for you.
Yes.
And it's going to continue to compensate. And this has been the theme for today because your body is miraculous.
Yes.
And it will compensate and compensate and compensate till it can't
anymore.
And then something happens to you. And that's normally the driving force to go seek something. And you're saying like, prevent that.
That the body can do that for a really long time sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly explaining that too and educating them. A lot of times pain is the tip of the iceberg. By the time it gets to a point where you can't take it anymore, And everybody's pain tolerance is different.
Right.
My 7 might be somebody else's 3 or a 2.
Right.
And so
I went to a yoga class on Sunday, and one of the best instructors ever works there. And they mentioned that the weight of your head, of balancing your head, is like 12 basketballs or something, like maybe even more. I don't know, but worth of effort to balance your head.
Yes.
That's how much pressure is put on the whatever connective things. I don't know about
so I'll
this.
break it down even more.
Yes, I want to know. When he told me that in the middle, I'm like this, stretching. I'm like
the
this
range
crazy.
of motion, so flexion, which is chin to chest, okay, that's 0 to 60 degrees. And for every 20-degree increment, so even if you're just looking down a little bit, that's like taking a 20-pound dumbbell, 40-degree flexion, 40-pound dumbbell, 60 degrees is a 60-pound dumbbell. And that is every time you do it. Think about that.
Wild.
And I watch young kids, where I live in Bexley. I'm right by the high school, lower school, middle school.
Looking at their phones like this all day?
With a heavy backpack that should only be 20% of kids' body weight anyway. I'm like, weigh those backpacks, because, when I hear too that some schools don't let kids have rolling backpacks, what? I mean, or they're having them just on one shoulder, not both. Our daily ergonomics, it's the repetitive things over and over and over again. So, sleeping on your back is the best way. I mean, being in neutral spine whenever we can.
Yeah.
So
I try. I'm such a side sleeper, but
it's just being mindful of it.
Yeah.
We can't be perfect all the time.
Right.
But, I think doing things correctly 80% of the time, eating correctly, exercising correctly, consistently, I think is
the 80-20 rule is always a good one.
It's a really good one.
Yeah.
So,
it's like anything else. I feel like the more educated people can be about those things and how their body works, like it's just, you only know like the basics, or it's very aesthetic and culturally what you know of, right? After a car accident, or if you're an athlete, that's when you go see a chiropractor, not because you're looking at your phone all day, which is arguably just as bad.
I mean, our posture is so important with efficiency of breathing and oxygenating the body. It's really important.
Yeah.
With just simple things like how we digest our food, all of those things.
Yeah.
So, and I think again that I think the typical medical model, they're not trained that way. I mean, they're just not.
No.
And that's just not their focus. Nutrition's not part of their education. Hopefully that changes with a lot of the things that are coming out now about, just how bad the food supply is.
Right.
And getting dyes out of foods.
Yeah.
We don't want this crazy imbalance of omega-6s to omega-3. And I mean, it's really changing the brain chemistry.
Right.
Which is terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
and it's quick to be able to be like, oh, it's all the devices they're on. It's all the things. It's all of it.
Yeah.
It's all of it. Like they're inundated. And so it's bad nutrition. It's those
DoorDash, Uber Eats. I mean, all that bad stuff can be to your kid's doorstep, even if parents, they might not even be aware of how much.
Stan told me yesterday that DoorDash has partnered with a third party
financing
to finance your DoorDash. Buy it now, pay for it later. It is so ridiculously like predatorial on young adults,
100%,
and these kids, and addictive,
preservatives, and all the things. I mean,
like,
and on the flip, that are banned in Europe and in Russia, even you're not allowed to GMO farm there.
Yeah.
No.
And I will say on the flip side too, like, we have all these things like that like, what the hell? But then also, if you have Instacart, you can also Klarna and finance your groceries. So think about the flip side of how much more people can afford if they say, okay, I don't have $200 right now in my pocket, but I could split this up within $40 for the next every other week. And I can buy from Costco a bunch of chicken to put in the freezer and veggies. And then this way, every week I'm only spending $40. And on the off weeks of my payments, I can go buy fresh fruits and vegetables. Like, I think that with all the bad, there's also this balance of good that can happen.
Hopefully.
If people think about that
Right.
critically or think about their situation and say, okay, so there are some more options now. How can I maximize my family or my
Yes.
nutrition to make this work for me now?
Yeah.
But
And
you have to be intentional.
you have
you
to
know?
be.
Right.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's a lot of benefit to financing fucking DoorDash.
No, not DoorDash at all.
I'm
But
like, that's
Yeah,
just
'cause
fucking predatory shit.
Right. Because it's probably a lot of crap being.
yeah,
It's all fast food, right? So
Yeah.
it's all we know,
Yeah.
we all know what we feel like when we go out to eat, right? And I'm a restaurateur, and we're pretty conscious about the
Yeah.
stuff that we source.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily what you're going to get at home.
Right.
It's not all organic. It's not right. And I can
Yeah.
tell the difference when we go out to eat. And on certain things, I'm like, that's not great. But it is what it, right? Like you can tell. And if you've been away from it long enough, you can
Yeah.
tell. You may not tell if you're eating it all the time. It's your norm, right?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
but it's an interesting topic that I think that people are wildly
And I think
unaware of.
My daughter, who's a junior, my girls are 17 and 18, and I've really tried to educate them on the whys of why we do these things, right?
Right.
And I've gotten baseline blood panel, biomarker panels on them, probably starting when they were 16,
Yeah.
just to kind of know where we were at with things. They know what seed oils are, why they're bad for you, what's wrong with omega-6s, why we don't want to be eating those types of things.
Give people example of omega-6s while you're talking about it.
Like seed oils, like that are in a lot of soybean oils and, things that are used as fillers and emulsifiers, and they're canola. I mean, they're cheaper than eating your good,
and they're in a lot of
organic-
processed foods.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I think when you start, even when you go to Whole Foods, you start really paying attention to labels. But I think it's sad that we can't just go to the grocery, no matter what we pick off the shelf, that we can't just assume that it's good for us.
Well,
I think it's horrible.
Right.
And on top of that, we have a huge population of people who can't afford organic. All these things we're talking about are lovely, but that's a real privilege to be able to afford a lot of those things. And what's even more detrimental is that we have a huge population of people that would really benefit from being able to have accessible food that's good for them. That just is not available to them any longer.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that can change.
Yeah.
Because those are the people I think that need it the most. To kind of get out of the hole that they're in.
Totally.
And
and they're the ones that are going to get be inundated, even if they're buying fruits and vegetables, that if they don't clean them properly, and even if you try, they're sprayed with so many things that are so bad for us that the body can't really break down. That those are the people that are going to get sick, right? Those are the people who are not going to be able to afford all of these treatments if they do get ill. And it's a vicious cycle that
I agree with that.
Our food supply really has to be looked at. And, we didn't experience all of these things in Europe. I'll tell you that when we were there over the summer. Yes. We were in France and we were in Italy, and the amount of fresh food that's available to you is staggering. And if something is processed and if it has sugar in it, it has a giant label on it that says, with a big circle and a thing through it, that says, you're putting some shit in your mouth that you shouldn't be, and you're making a real choice. Like it is not
instead of seeing a TV ad that is almost
there's no greenwashing there.
Celebrity,
right. Yeah, there's no greenwash labeling over there. Like they're like, no, this has 52 grams of sugar in it. So if you're going to eat this, you're making a
the list
damn
of ingredients.
choice.
The same product in the States will have, paraphrasing, but 25 things. In Europe, it has 3. So
right.
Well, I think a lot of I listen to this podcast, Maintenance Phase, that talks about our diet industry and what labeling can get away with. This is heart healthy. This is this is that.
The American Heart Association approves omega-6.
Totally.
Seed oil. Okay. And then seed oils now are I think they are required in infant formula. And I had a young couple patient that they're really wanting to do very holistic, having a different conversation about vaccination. That's a whole other topic. And I don't think questioning what's in the vial of a vaccine is a bad thing. And it doesn't make you an anti-vax person. It's just knowing what you're putting in your body, right? But they were in search of, hoping that breastfeeding would work out, but in search of a seed oil-free infant formula, could not find one in the States. They had to ship it in. They found one in Australia, ungodly expensive. And I think it was even at that called a toddler formula. So it's
Yeah.
just, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know?
It's
Or
insane.
the scheduled C-sections that are happening and the whole other set of, probiotics as the baby is delivered naturally. I get it if there's an emergency. I get it. But to intentionally schedule a delivery, can we look at that? I mean, it's just, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
why are we pushing people this way? I mean, everything on television, the ads and the suggestive ideas of you might have this disease, you have this symptom. Like, so you walk into your doctor's office and you talk.
I need this medicine.
Yeah. And I feel like what I've watched too, like I can remember when I first got out of school, treating a lot of workers' comp injuries. It went from just being able to be kind of, you just submitted a bill and it got paid, to as a doctor, it was managed care now. So we had to get approval for chiro visits, and maybe 12 at a time. Okay. So I'd have a patient come in, they'd have a basic, simple lumbar, low back sprain, strain, neck sprain, whatever it is. In my opinion, not needing an MRI right away, X-ray, fine to rule out fracture and all that kind of stuff. And I would get approval for those first 12 visits. And then I started getting denials, and they were sending patients to pain management. That immediately, I knew what that meant, 30-day supply of Oxycontin. So like Dope Stick and those shows on Hulu.
Yeah.
Like, I watched it all unfold. And then these patients would become addicts. And it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, and it just was wild to live it. And now 25 years later, they're now finally starting to expose this when they knew how addictive it was, and they still let them manufacture it.
Well, I think everything we're talking about is just all following the money trail, right?
It's wild.
It doesn't matter
wild.
whether it's treatment or care or medicine. It's just, it's always important to look at where
Can we just do the right thing?
Can we?
Just
do the right thing by our people. Yeah.
So you
Amen.
went to school and did you start your own practice right away? Tell us a little bit about your career.
I worked for family that really highly influenced me to become a chiropractor. Two brothers. And so I started out there in Cincinnati for like 6 months, and that just didn't gel. And that's fine. It just wasn't the fit for me, even though I was really close with the family. Still incredibly grateful that they really inspired me to continue on this journey. Still good friends with them today. But then when I moved up to Columbus, I actually took a job for a telemarketing personal injury car accident kind of chain clinic. And the reason it's how I met my ex-husband now. But what's interesting with
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
that makes sense.
But because some people have connotations about that, like, oh, you were actually calling these accident victims, and I said, yeah, but I was in the heart of the hilltop, pretty much. And these people, medical doctors wouldn't take on a car accident case. So here, these people would have these injuries, and it ran the gamut. I mean, the things that I saw coming in my little office, where if people weren't going to the ER, the things that I caught, I mean, cases of cauda equina and fractured vertebrae. I mean, it was everything that I learned in school, fresh out of school, that if you see this is like immediate neurosurgery referral. It was, so I got this education in a year that I worked for this guy. And then I ended up setting up my own practice. He had clinics east, north, and west. And so I went south in German Village. And the guy that owned all the chain clinics wasn't out of Columbus. So I had made all the relationships with the different attorneys. And that was great, to get a good start with personal injury and workers' comp. Very lucrative, helped me pay off my student loans. But I was still helping people.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But within that, I knew I really wanted to diversify myself within that. So, whether it be seeing more women or infants or a cash paying patient, and then from there, once I had my girls, I took a little break for a couple of years, always kept my license active. And then when I went back to work, partnered, had a gym business for about 4 years, had my chiropractic practice out of there. And I think that naturally attracted a lot more athletes too, because they were coming in there and training like, oh, by the way, we've got a chiropractor in the back. And you know, and then word of mouth referral just kind of happened from there, and there. And
it's what I consider a big boy gym.
yeah,
Okay.
it was a functional fitness gym. You know, some people would walk in there like, what the heck do I do in here?
Right.
And I'd walk in there like, this is amazing. You know, like we're flipping tires. And I used to watch Stan just get, God would just crush him.
Annihilated. The pain train. That's what we call it. The pain train.
So you were working in the gym, and then did that inspire you, like the athlete come back out in you, or had you always kind of still been?
Oh yeah, I've always weight trained heavy. I've always played, you know, co-ed rec sports. I know I was the first girl to ever sign up to play in the men's Jewish Center basketball league, which was so funny.
Yeah.
It's like, the questions are like, Steph, aren't you afraid you're going to get hurt? And I'd look right at him. I'm like, are you? You know, I'm like, no, I know what I'm doing here. You know, but so then, you know, still play volleyball up until, I don't know, 5 years ago. Still played a lot of softball. You know, So I just enjoy it. I think it's you know, a nice way to be social, get good exercise, love competition, you know, in a healthy way.
Right.
That kind of gets my juices going a little bit. So
what do you do now for fun?
So weight training, I kind of, you know, we were talking before, I'm kind of on this journey. I'm trying to get a 300-pound deadlift in this year. And I'm at about 253, 255 right now. And what I'm realizing with it, you know, all the things I do know about multi-joint motion and body works, as I age, I feel like, you know, before maybe 15 years ago would have been heavy back squat, right? But now I'm like, man, thinking about how do I really move in life as a human? Deadlifting is pretty spot on. When you bend down to pick a piece of furniture up. You know, you have to use your lats, your core, all quadrants of your core. You know, your glutes, your biceps. I mean, you know, the last training session I had changing my grip on the, you know, over under grip on my deadlift.
Yeah.
My left biceps tendon was the sorest thing on my body. And I was like, what is happening?
What happened?
Crazy. I just pulled 250 pounds and my biceps tendon is sore.
That grip switch is
so
serious.
It's why, and so, you know, but I'm enjoying it because it's humbling in a good way, you know, and it keeps you going back for more. And it's wild how, you know, to try and increase by a 10-pound increment, it's like you can pick it up like it's nothing, and then you add 10 more pounds, and I'm like, I can't even budge the bar, you know? So,
you're like, this isn't happening right now.
Yeah. So that's currently kind of, you know, what I'm doing. But I Peloton and Pilates. I have a reformer Pilates in my house. Big on that practice too. So.
I think it's so important for women as we get older to really focus on muscle and building muscle. And I know we talked about this a little bit before, but women have this crazy fear of getting bulky. And if that were the case, I wish that was true, because it is so much work to get there. But I read this book called Outlive. Have you heard of it?
I've been listening to it on audiobook.
Okay. I finished it. Maybe it was like the middle of last year. And I loved it.
Yeah. It's very good.
So like thoughtful about just like, you not outlive, like live to your 130, but like shorten the years where you're immobile, basically.
Yeah. So your health span can equate to your lifespan.
Totally.
Yeah. So if I live to be 95, God willing, you know, I want to be really rock solid until maybe 94 and 6 months.
Exactly.
You know, like I don't want this like Alzheimer's setting in at
the long
65.
decline.
Yes, exactly. And
I
being
thought,
a burden to my children. You know, all of that. Right?
And I thought it was so interesting talking about the strengthening of your muscles and how important that is. You don't think about how hard it will one day be to like get off of a recliner or even sit on a toilet, or like, and it's like that stepping up motion and making sure that your body's strong.
And I see those patients that have the falls, or we all hear about somebody's mom who had to have a hip replacement because she fractured her hip falling down, you know, going to get the mail. I mean, you know, and so muscle, I kind of talk about it like it's a commodity as we age. Bone density, the balance, the blood flow to the brain, you know, and I think doing things that I personally like being humbled when I walk into a gym. I'm like, wow, that's fucking hard, right? But what I know is that how my body's going to adapt to it is going to make me a better version of myself. Where I think a lot of women kind of run into that. They're so intimidated by that. and they don't want to look dumb or stupid or feel that way, in the gym, instead of embracing it and looking at it like, how is my body, like, how is it going to just adapt to that and make me better, make me stronger?
Yeah.
So
there's nothing more rewarding than adding 5 pounds to a lat raise. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, hell yeah. I'm at a 20 now. Like, like, there's nothing more empowering once you get over that first hump of being nervous or afraid. And, that's why I think it's,
or things that you maybe needed a friend to help you lift.
Yes.
And now I got this,
Totally.
It's so like empowering and
for sure
liberating and, just all the things. So, yeah.
What is your suggestion on, or your stance on women over 50 lifting heavy? Like, I've heard multiple things, like you should lift max and 6 reps only until failure, and like heavy and fast, basically, till failure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends what your training is for too.
Yeah.
If you're trying to get that 1 rep PR max, it's a whole different approach than, just doing maintenance work of staying. For myself, if I wanted to stay at a 225 pound deadlift, well, okay, that's no problem. So I might go in and do 3 sets of 10 of that, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So, I think whatever it is that you're up to, if you're trying to train for a marathon, some people are doing that at 50.
Yeah.
Great,
fine.
Right. But I also think that your training, your nutrition, your recovery treatments, you have to do it all. I mean, the stuff on the back end, the recovery and the self-care that you have, that you can afford, there's so much too that you can do for yourself. I mean, just paying attention to your diet and your protein intake. And for women, getting that 100 grams plus, or, 0.8 to 1 gram, gram of protein per pound of body weight. It's a job. I mean, you have to be very mindful of it. But it's really important. So, I mean, I think it depends what the goal is.
Right. I think the more important thing about that question is, why, as women, are we told so often, like, oh, you should be worried about this. Like, don't do this. Like, oh, and it's really like, well, actually, we're all different, just like dudes.
Right.
And we all need different things for our body, and we all have different goals.
Yeah.
So why are women getting blanketed statements about what you should be doing after a certain age? I understand there's some like biology there that can cause that, but really it should be encouraging women to figure out.
I think honestly, I think a lot of women do too much cardio, like over train sometimes.
Totally.
And they're not, taking those rest days. I mean, you can do an active recovery, like a reformer Pilates, a yoga class, with like more restorative kind of stuff. So I think if anything, you have to look at that too. I think sometimes women are doing too much.
Yeah, we're triggering a cortisol response. You're getting a cortisol response because you're stressing the body too much.
And it can show up like where you're storing your fat. I do think hormone balancing is I'm personally a fan of the bioidentical hormone balancing. Again, I think it's finding the right physician to guide you through that. I'm in no way an expert on that, so I'm not going to say who should do it, who shouldn't. I think it's finding the right functional medicine doctor to guide you through that process. Yeah. That has been a game changer for me. I started perimenopause probably 43. So, hadn't had a cycle since I was 44. And never knowing when that was going to be, because my mom had a hysterectomy at 32. My grandmother's never talked about it. So, and I'm more research that I read, women are hitting perimenopause in their late 30s now. Yeah. And, okay, what's the reason for that though? Right. I mean, that's a whole other thing, food supply, if we want to talk about all that too. But, but I think finding, and if you're able to be a candidate for bioidentical hormones, it helps you sleep so much better, maintain the muscle mass, build the muscle mass, all the things. Yeah. So
my energy just went out the door. Like it was like it just like took a hard left, and I was like, wait. Yeah. I'm exhausted all the time.
It just nosedive.
Yeah.
All
the time. Yeah. And my joint, this is what we talked about in the last podcast. The doctor that was on, my joints hurt suddenly, like I'm an active person, but suddenly I feel like an arthritic 90-year-old. I'm like, everywhere. Like it was arthralgia everywhere. Yeah. And I'm like, all of my joints hurt, my hips, my knees, my ankles, my elbows, my neck. Like I was having debilitating before I went on my estrogen, debilitating, but I'm still having a hard time getting somebody to replace my testosterone. Like my doctors don't want to do it.
You know what?
Because
Which
it's,
is wild. That's where you got to find your right doctor.
That's what we were talking about. And I was like, thank God that, and she's covered by insurance, which a lot of these places aren't, you know, and
that's hard.
That it's hard to find somebody that's specializing in it.
Yeah.
That will take your insurance. There are all these boutique practices that just want to take cash pay, and I get it. But at the same time, like, if you pay for insurance, a lot of people just want to use their insurance, you know?
And I get that question all the time. But I do understand why, you know, doctors like Dr. Serrano, his other associate now, Dr. Fosselman, because that's another thing that I'm seeing is that a lot of these, you know, family practices are being bought up by a bigger corporate conglomerate. Med students have hundreds of thousands in student loan debt, and they literally become minions of quotas of what they need to write for scripts. How many patients in a day can you see? And on top of lack of education in medical school. So I think it's just creating, you know, just this stressed out environment with doctors are so many medical
the insurance program, you mean,
so
accepting
that's why
insurance.
The doctors who are more concierge, you know, I think that's why they don't want to be that that kind of minion to the system.
Yeah. And that was the impressive thing about her is that she is doing concierge work, but also accepting insurance payment, which is
it's a blend. It's best of both.
Best of both, you know,
what she can, right?
Of what she can
offer with insurance. Not everything.
Not everything, but what she can. And I was like, man, I literally looked. I'm like, I Googled for people that are hormone replacement therapy professionals who are really experts on it, who also take insurance, and you really can't find them.
I don't even know because I've just been willing and have the means to go see Dr. Serrano.
So can you talk to us a little bit? Are you taking new patients now, or where can people find you if they just want to follow your journey, whether it be like watching you with weightlifting or whatever that looks like?
You know, so I practice in Bexley, and yes, I am accepting new patients. It's pretty much all word of mouth how people find me. Everybody, this is so funny. I don't have a scheduling app. I don't have Instagram. I don't really have a designated Facebook page for my business. Everybody text me or can email me for an appointment. Okay. So my cell is 614-537-3797, or you can email me at Stephanie Gudorf, Gudorf, DC@gmail.com.
Awesome.
And happy to take on new patients. So I pride myself in giving individualized care, very honest, straightforward opinion. Love giving patients homework and things they can do for themselves. And just, you know, I'm accessible to people too. If you got a question about, call me, you know, I mean, I'll whatever I know, I will share with you. And if I don't know, I have a lot of other people in my network that I can go to answer those questions. And then I learn along the way.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes within the medical model, you don't always hear a lot of MDs say, I don't know. I think that their egos sometimes just don't. I'm not bashing medical doctors. It's just that I personally am not afraid to say, hey, I don't know. Let me dive into the research. Let me see what's out there. I'll get back. So,
right. Yeah. Let's tackle this together and see if we can figure it out. There's no shame in that, right?
100%.
No shame in that.
Correct.
Going back to what we talked about before with women being afraid of like being in the gym, right? That intimidation factor.
Yeah.
One of our many business ideas, Amanda and I, since we've met each other, was to have a only women's gym.
So I think there is one. There was a trainer that I don't know. It might be Women's Fight Club or something like that. I think she used to be a trainer at the old gym that I owned, and then she branched off from there. I think she just expanded. I've not been there, but my friends that do go love it for that factor.
Yeah.
That, you know, they're not, I'm never intimidated to lift next to a guy. I don't, I do what I do. I do it for the reason to better myself, not to compete against somebody.
You're so much better of a person than I am. I literally will be on the bench and I see a guy next to me. I'm like,
well, no,
give me 35s right now. I'm definitely bigger than he is. I got this guy. I'm a monster.
And I love that. I mean, you know, I catch the eyeballs of them watching how many 45s I'm putting on the barbell. Of course, right? I mean,
you better watch.
Or
feeling them watching me.
or you pick up this dumbbell and then you see it, then you just kind of subtly know, oh, okay, they're putting theirs back, and I got to get the big boys, you know.
Yeah.
So it does. I'm single too, so that gets it. That's a whole other interesting conversation as far as I guess it's intimidation factor. I don't understand it, you know, but I'm kind of like, why wouldn't you want a woman that can help you lift the couch and do it herself?
What
you know, I'm
small. I can pick your ass up. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But you know,
like, plus I can do adjustments.
Yeah, right.
I'm talented in so many levels
for the reasons of, you know, the bone density issues alone, age.
Yeah.
It's important.
It is, because, you know, I now being, you know, 53 and now seeing, you know, some of my really good friends who've had joint replacement already, or, you know, they're on prescription meds for osteoporosis. They have to be, right? And it's like, man, I don't want to. I want to be the you know, constantly doing the proactive work, right?
Yeah.
And does it take work? Yes. It's you know, it's being consistent. And you know, it's not some days, you know, if you don't even feel like it, but you're like, no, I'm going to do it, you know?
Get in the sauna, laying on my mat. Yeah. If you have it available to you, do it. You know, I also think that it would be great to have some of these, like a place where you can go as like a gym that has the red light therapy, the infrared.
More places there's that are trying to piece it all together. You know, it's expensive equipment.
It's expensive. Yeah.
But I feel like we're seeing a shift, you know, compared to, you know, 25 years ago when I joined Lifetime Fitness.
Right.
You're not, you know, I don't know what they have currently now, but I think more and more gyms are getting into the recovery things.
Even Planet Fitness has vibrating red light machines. I mean, in that's affordable. That's $20 a month. And I think I'm always going to bring that up on these episodes of like, there are resources out there in places like $20 a month for maintaining wellness by being able to use those machines.
Movement.
Exactly. And then they do have some recovery things. They even have like the water hydro beds just to lay on. Like any of the
a foam roller,
things.
a $20 foam roller is self-care.
Totally. And there's so much you can do without having to go to the extreme too of just getting in the habit of being mindful of taking care.
By the way, go outside.
Yes, get your natural sunlight, morning sunlight, barefoot,
go outside.
Feet on the ground.
So one of our last questions is women that have inspired you along the journey, whether you know them, don't know them, just people that have inspired you along your way.
Oh, wow. You know, I'm going to have to say my grandma Gudorf was an incredible woman. And my sister and I talk about it pretty much every day. Her name is mentioned in some regard. I mean, she just was, you know, she had all those kids and she just was so sweet, never raised her voice. I mean, she just worked so hard, but she loved hard and, you know, just created that really tight knit family. You know, other than that, along the way, gosh, I'd say she's definitely the most influential one. And then my aunts, you know, that followed in with that. So I'd have to put that at family. There have been some female athletes, absolutely. I mean, I love like listening to different female podcasters too that are kind of in that biohacking world as well. I think more and more are kind of coming out. I'm listening to Gabrielle Lyons a lot, Dr. Lyons quite a bit. I think she's huge on the muscle, you know, organ of longevity and really inspiring women to not be afraid of the weight training. How much protein to eat, you know? And I think a lot of people want to do these things. I think it's just knowing how much and, you know, when and how and all the things, you know?
I think that women's health is taking such a huge shift and that there's actual research about medications and how it impacts women. By the way, if you don't know, most pharmaceuticals have only been tested on men, not on women. And they just assume we're small men and we're not.
Right.
We're hormonal creatures and we cycle monthly and they cycle every 24 hours. And so knowing that, and I know that you know this is about athletes, right, is that you knew when you were more prone to injury based on where you were at in your cycle. And if you had a good coach, they knew that too. They know when to push you and when not to push you in your cycle when you're an athlete because you are more prone to injury based on where your hormone levels are. The way you eat should be changing a bit based on your hormones. The way you exercise should be changing a bit based on your hormones. The way we're aging changes based on our hormones, right? Like we are such hormonal creatures and we're not just small men. We're not.
Right.
And it's in the medical world, I think, is finally starting to catch on to that. And we are starting to see more studies and more things and people coming out.
People are starting to advocate for themselves, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, and two other women, I'd have to say that my sister is incredibly inspiring and I just love her. And we were 2 years apart and, you know, growing up, and she was the younger sister and she said she was always compared to me. She's like, you know, you won the spelling bee in 4th grade and 5th grade and your first team, all this in every sport. And, you know, she's like, I just threw in the towel and I'm just going to have fun. And but I was homecoming queen and you know, those like funny competitive things.
Yeah,
Right? Oh gosh. And then I had another great teacher. Her 2 sons are chiropractors. Rhonda Shelby. She's definitely a second mother to me. And just, you know, I had a great community of, you know, I saw strong women kind of just doing it, just doing things, you know?
Yeah.
So
in the wellness world, really, like you grew up with all these inspiring people in the wellness world.
Absolutely. So, and
awesome.
you know, that's the thing too. I don't know what the percentage is now, but when I got out of chiropractic college, it was only 20% of us were female. And I've worked in clinics before. When I worked in Zanesville, Ohio for like a year, and I had one guy come in, muscular guy. He goes, female chiropractor, like what's she gonna do? He walked out of the room and he was like, okay then. And the whole staff was like, oh, just see Dr. Steph, just give her a chance, you know? And it was the front desk.
Listen, when you take those metal tools to anyone,
the Graston blades.
Oh my God.
That's right. Good.
Well, they're torture devices is what they are. They're incredibly effective.
I call them like positive trauma blades, right? Where we're breaking up mineral deposits, increasing pliability in soft tissue. So.
I don't know what this is, but I know that I need it. So
you would actually probably sadistically enjoy it. Yeah.
I love
you
would. Deep tissue.
Yeah, you would.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
You're very
welcome.
welcome.
Chatting with us. You can find this episode when it airs on YouTube. You can watch the video or live stream it through audio. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeart. So
if any of this resonated with you and you think somebody would benefit from this information that Stephanie has graciously given us, please share it. We love you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate you.
Great.
Love you guys.
Okay.